The estate started with a winery years ago, and then later on, when the TarraWarra Museum of Art was built, which is by Alan Powell, we ended up with another magnificent piece of architecture on the site. And it was decided that for a whole host of reasons it made sense to make it an underground space, so hence the cellar door project. Now obviously there's a long tradition of the European underground cellar, so it tapped into that whole history of the cellar space as these beautiful subterranean areas. But it also meant that we let those two pieces of architecture continue to be the big events here, especially the museum. And so there's quite a subtle and low-key appearance of the cellar door from outside in the form of that entry courtyard. So it's, you know, low-key entry point, and then we hope a spectacular experience once people are inside. The other thing about being underground is that thermally, and this is why carves and so forth have always been underground, is just the thermal constancy, which makes good sense because this is actually a continuation or extension of the original barrel store. And a big part of your experience here is being able to look into the barrel store and feel connected to that part of the winery building. So you can see past that black line there, that demarcates the old and the new tunnel. So that's the original barrel store, a really beautiful, intriguing space, hard-working space, utilitarian space. And that's really what drove the location and also the form of the new cellar door. So you can also see the difference between the corrugated sheet, which was used on the earlier ceiling, and then this point where we changed to the precast panels, but also in the vault form. Also from here, I think what's really lovely is when you're in there, you just get the full drama of this very long space. It's really spectacular being in these unusually long spaces. I think every job has its pressure actually, but certainly with this one, because there was two really good buildings here already, then you had to keep the standard high. So this space, apart from that little window just there, it is much more internal. It is more about almost separating you from the world outside, so that you obviously have the skylights which give you a connection to the sky, so you have some sense of the time of day and things, but there's something mysterious about having that separation. And then of course when you do exit, back in that courtyard, frames the sky, frames the landscape, and you know you're back in the Yarra Valley. So that's what we took as our key brief, both European hybrid with an Australian landscape setting. Yeah, which is a really lovely brief to be able to respond to. It seemed like a nice idea to have a potentially more enclosed space that bridged between the barrel store proper, the original tunnel, and then the cellar door. And so the idea of a private dining area was introduced. People always want to get inside and sniff the barrels. So even the smell, which you get a bit of a sense of from in here, it really hits you when you walk through those glass doors there. And what was interesting, when we first started the project, we probably had in mind a slightly more utilitarian space that was literally just an extension of the working tunnel. And then as the brief developed and as the marketing opportunities became clearer, and then all the other uses and events and receptions that the space could host, a slightly more finessed space was what seemed to be more appropriate. So you can see the subtle difference between the original tunnel and this one is even just the level of finish on the walls, with the off-form appearance. These are precast panels, by the way. That was decided to be the easier way to construct this rather than in situ. But just the texture on the walls gave an additional layer of warmth and interest because this is occupied by humans rather than barrels of wine. And even though you're subterranean, it's really the play of light across textured surfaces which gives much of its interest and richness. And then the timber is a way to, again, add a layer of richness to that relative restraint of the concrete floor, ceiling, and and walls. And as I say, with the introduction of the skylights, that's what helps to give the drama of the light. I think without the skylights, this would not work. During the design stages, we had contemplated achieving the concrete as either in situ or precast. At one stage, in situ was explored, and then Foursquare, who were the builders and construction managers, came on board, and together KTA and Foursquare were able to work through the logistics of building, and in the end precast was fixed on. And that was really good, because I think when you have that opportunity for the people who are going to actually be constructing it to work closely with the design team, we could make sure that the details were tailored to suit that preferred construction methodology. And the other thing that was interesting about once we shifted to precast and decided definitely on that, what that means is that it had to be panelised. So the question becomes, what do you do with the joints? So that's where we thought, well, we need to incorporate joinery, storage for marketing goods, wines, but also the various wine storage units. All of those things had to be integrated, so the breaks between the panels was the perfect place to do it. And then as you get towards the bar, you can see in that largest section between parts of the concrete wall is where we've got the main serving area and bar station, which has got the Eurocarb fridges underneath and all the different zones for the different wine types. So those cabinets were a way to make that very easy, very accessible for staff when they're handling lots of people. You know, the space had to work for if there's only 2 people here, which could happen outside of peak times, or tens and possibly even 100 or more. And the space has to feel right in any of those scenarios. Things like the long bar was a way to be able to spread out the crowds when you do get those really busy times, and obviously things like the additional tables that can take the pressure off the bar. I think sitting here, what's really lovely is you realise that you're in this stunning Yarra Valley landscape, but you're also in a working landscape as well, and you can see out there the concrete apron where the trucks will come to do the bottling and forklifts and so forth, moving barrels, delivering grapes, all of that. And it was also, even though the cellar door is largely an interior experience, really just with skylights, except for this window, it was just the one moment where you get some relief out to that bigger landscape.